American Charger. False witness. We hustled out of 1127 15th Street, our high-rise headquarters at Capitol Park in Sacramento, and stumbled over a dead man on the sidewalk. We were headed for Mather Airport to inspect a mobile training center for Legal Kids. Legal Kids, abbreviated LK, is a paramilitary group of children under our tutelage. My name is Paul Victor Hastings, resident owner of one of two penthouses on HQ's 25th floor. Across the hall is Neo, full name Dionysus Edward Coglin. He lives with his girlfriend, Salem Jones. The three of us burst into life under different moons 34 years ago. The entire top floor was ours, and security cameras dotted every room in HQ, including our Spartan suites and the LK Art Gallery. Roger, trained at our LK School for the Gifted, painted a bleeding heart 1 month ago. Before the 12-year-old could hang it in our gallery, I scratched off the expletive in the title and routed him to Neo. Neo convened an LK court. The court resembled a court of military justice. A sentencing enhancement sent the boy to the sentient piston room. Neo, Salem, and I had set up LK to counter protests and preserve civil society, which had descended into chaos. Advanced weaponry controlled by the United States Army had been placed in our arms after a win by presidential candidate Prescott Black at the end of 2024. I'm a loyal American. Prescott had repeated during the campaign. He was our man, but many were out for blood. When Neo tripped over the aforementioned corpse, he spilled his juice can, an LK product we named Toxic. The splashing cherry-flavored liquid, whose chief ingredient was blood plasma, contrasted with the silver and blue flakes of Neo's all-weather military-grade metal arm. My mother had designed the pattern, and our LK girl seamstress had fitted it to his body. 200-pound, 11-year-old little Timmy, an LK, said, "The dead man's been out here for an hour." His hands reached for the body like a front-end loader. "No, wait," I said, "he's controlled by artificial intelligence. Leave him there." "He's dead," said 6-year-old LK David, his eyes as big as they could be. Neo scanned the exterior of HQ's glass tower and the reflection of clouds slowly moving across it and said, "David, you still have much to experience. Who we need is Salem." "Salem is a Matrix legend capable of defeating humans controlled by artificial intelligence," said little Timmy in one breath. As I followed Neo's eyes, I knew my best friend was searching for divine guidance, and as I looked down, little Timmy lifted David 4 feet off the ground just for fun. Neo asked, "What do we do with this dead guy?" "Little Timmy, take the dead body inside and throw him in the incinerator," I said. "Yes, sir." Little Timmy let David down hard. As little Timmy dragged the dead man, Neo twirled around to watch, tracing his own boot mark in the sidewalk. It had been there for 6 months, since January 1st. He was a real foot marksman. Now, about the dead man, assume that his identity is unimportant. However, the events leading up to such an everyday sight are very important. To reiterate, Neo, Salem, and I had set up LK to counter protests destroying America. To that end, we have shared our advanced weaponry with our youth, with boys like little Timmy, David, and Roger. Since the worldwide virus of 2020, things had gone downhill, and now, after the authenticated election of candidate Black, we had arrived at the point of rebellion. My mission, approved by the United States Army, was a detailed one. Command chose me and Neo for the job. They determined that my age and rank as a lieutenant colonel, airborne qualified, Space Force attaché to Delta Force, USA Special Operations Command were sufficient, and that service for 9 years and 6 months was perfect. Neo's nearly identical service record and his rank as a major in the same unit qualified him to be the perfect auxiliary. When not engaged directly with the enemy, he would act as a regular Joe Blow. The freedom that Neo's feigned disguise had afforded him suited his extracurricular habits. "Look at that!" I shouted. Crude phrases about LK were scrawled on every entrance to our building. "Neo, please set up a team to deal with these graffiti slugs. The bar down the street got graffitied. Did you know that?" "We can't do anything about that," I said. The bar owner asked, "Where's your friend been?" My patrons like seeing him in here dancing naked, Neo said. You mean Max? I was drunk, and you got me drunk, I said. Neo laughed, saying, a week ago I got caught dancing naked on the street. Letting the good times roll could have landed you in the drunk tank, but before I could say anything else, Neo informed me, that place is painted drunk tank pink. For a reason, to temporarily reduce aggressive behavior, I said. Paul, I'm not aggressive. I lent Max the LK Library's copy of Harrison Bergeron. I moved closer to Neo and spoke in his right ear. Our cute villain little Timmy will have cremated the dead man before a reporter from KVIE can get here and file a news report tonight. Paul, they don't do local news. Oh yeah? Let me remind you, Neo. They have feelers, and what they hear is passed on to CBS News. The news misrepresents everything we say or do. The news people arrive with clanging equipment and posters of shackled ballerinas plastered to the sides of the vans, and out pops a knocked senseless government reporter. He's a Johnny on the spot and will be here in no time, but we have thwarted them. Neo smoothed the mesh that covered a section of his steel arm and said, Say, Paul, the story they did on your derealization was a hack job. Just then a noise like the sound of a falling tripod stand made us both jump. We didn't know what it was. I woke up that fearsome morning with the recurring feelings of the outsider, detached from HQ and detached from the world, and the sudden noise jacked up my distress. Neo's voice began to drift, my heart began to slow, and all seemed to fade. I could barely hear him say, Are you going to your doctor's appointment? I could not tell Army Command about my diagnosis. A marriage and family therapist recommended by my priest had dispensed the bad news and had prescribed nothing for it. Give me a minute, I said. I scrambled into the building, past the LK Art Gallery, and threw open the bathroom door. I looked in the mirror to make sure I was present. The image was blurry, so I sat on the floor in a corner and clenched my teeth. I began to cry, but an LK entered, and I wiped away the tears, not wanting him to see me as I was. My mother was always there to comfort me, and I wondered if she was okay. She lived 10 minutes away. I loved her and Dad beyond what is average. I called it a love affair, which confused everyone who heard my slight exaggerations. My siblings moved away and seldom spoke to me. Once a month I worked myself up into a crying rage over my brother and sister, but Neo and Salem always calmed me down, and likewise every time I walked into church, I left the harsh world behind, like when you walk into Disneyland. The dead body had been carbonized by the time I made my way out of the bathroom and into the lobby near the Welcome Center Jumbotron. I hugged 3 smiling kids grouped around Neo. A 15-year-old held an AK-47 with sound suppressor, and one clasped a Glock 17, and another, a much younger assistant to the other 2, wore an ammo bandolier. Neo was giving them snap advice on their weapons.